Hello, Internet, and welcome once again to the Free-to-Play cast brought to you by MMOBomb.com, your home for all things free-to-play related. This is episode 298, recording on April 18th, 2019. You're watching it on the 19th or later. I'm Mike Byrne, aka magicman, your host for today, and we've got, well, I would say I'm surprised, but not surprised, but actually really surprised at about some news from a game from ages ago, and then, hey, you know, we made some predictions, and every once in a while, if you make enough of them, one of them's gonna be right, and turns out, all three of us got this one right, and, something's going on in our legal system here in the United States that could be interesting in the future, even if its own personal case really might not see too much of the press. So we're going to get to all of that, plus your bombs and more. But joining me on that journey, Mr. Jason Winter, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great because I got to dig up 15-year-old screenshots to use in articles this week.
Yeah, you are pretty geeked about this, actually.
Yeah,
you have
not as much as some people.
Yeah, you have some opinions on this one, and I'm sure we'll get to those. Also on the line, Ms. Quinlan Bowers. What's up, Q?
Not a lot. I'm up. I'm dressed. I'm not sure what else people expect from me.
Hey, that's like 90% of being an adult is make sure you get up and you get dressed. Pants are optional in most cases.
Yeah, as always.
You can only see from here up. You have no idea. I mean, hell, Zach never had legs, and you guys didn't even know it. Then he got robot legs, and you didn't know it. Speaking of Zach and I have been chatting because we have an Albion Online first look on the site, and Albion Online went free to play. But we did that first look, like that was even before I had come back to the site. Spunkify, I think, did the first look way back then, and then the game didn't go free to play. So we've been kind of debating whether or not to do an update on it, but it's not exactly the best game for somebody that isn't actively playing it and has played it for a little while to go do a first look on. So Zach has been spending a lot of time in Albion Online with a friend of his, really enjoying it quite a bit. So you will hear Zach's voice. You won't see his legs on the Albion Online first look, which will be coming up probably sometime next week. So stay tuned for that and the return of Mr. Zach Sharps. On that note, let's slide over to the news and get started. All right, here we go. Now, first, we got to give a big shout out here first and credit where due. A lot of the things we're going to be talking about on this topic were discovered / reported / responded to by people to massively OP. In particular, our friend Bree Royce over there. So great writers. We're friends with all of them. Love them very much. They're the ones that kind of broke this whole story and have been getting some responses to it. Other outlets have picked it up, but I think it's fair to say, Jason, that if Massively OP doesn't run the article that they did, we're not going to see that that article on PC Gamer that we then saw following that. So huge kudos and credits to our friends over at Massively OP, with a special nod to Bree. What we're talking about, of course, is that if you were a City of Heroes fan and you've enjoyed being in that community of City of Heroes refugees for the last 6 years, turns out that there was a private server of the game itself for a while now. And by a while, I mean years now. Relatively quickly after the shutdown, this private server spun up. Now, this was not emulation like you see with Star Wars Galaxies. This was not that type of... This was actual source code on a private server. It's been running, and anybody that played on it was invited by people who already played on it or were affiliated with the owners of the site, and they've been under NDA. But we're not talking about Jason Q and I running a private server for a game of ours. We're talking thousands of people playing on this private server. So it is the... I want all of these people now to work for governments because they kept a hell of a secret here for a very long time. But now that it's out, the shit's hitting the fan. So kind of take us through this from top to bottom, Jason. What exactly was going on and how did the beans get spilled?
All right, so as you said, like just I think just a few months after the the game was shut down, which was in November 30th, 2012. That was when it went offline. Actually, a number of people, but the main person who is getting credit or blame or whatever for all this is a guy named Leandro Pardini. He apparently got the source code, as you said, allegedly from actual developers who worked on the game.
Now, to be fair on that speculation, there are people that played saying it's source code and he got it from developers. He has said, I'm not going to divulge any of my sources on this stuff because I don't want to get them in trouble. I'm not going to confirm or deny any of that stuff on where I got it.
Yeah, he's being very cagey about it, which kind of leads you to believe that it actually is someone who...
Yeah,
he actually says he doesn't want that person to get into real trouble, which you could see for obvious reasons.
right.
So yeah, supposedly got it from that and basically set it up and ran it. And as you said, invite only, more or less secret in the case that, yeah, they had the NDA, but it still got out there occasionally. And people would talk about it and say, hey, I hear there's a secret City of Heroes server. To which case a lot of the rest of the community said, oh, you're full of it. You have no proof, blah, blah, blah. And some people even got like worse verbal abuse, as Leandro put it when he was talking about the reaction some people got. But yeah, it trucked on for, like I said, the better part of 6 years. Apparently to the point they even like were adding content to it. They increased the level cap, put in some additional events, I think. And yeah, ran it for 6 years, invite only. And recently, though, someone actually finally broke that NDA, and that's where this whole thing has broken and become a more public sort of thing.
Now, on that, this isn't the first person, we should say, that has seemed to hint at the existence of this private server, or maybe even have violated the NDA to certain extents on their own. It's been alluded to throughout the years on a number of different sources, including Reddit, and of course, now that adds to the conspiracy theory stuff going on here on, was Reddit in on this? Was, Ship of Heroes in on this? Was, what's the other one? Paragon Chat? Was Paragon Chat in
Valiance
on this?
Online,
Because
Super
these
emulation games,
all of these things seem to be like parsing out any reference to this, like everybody was trying to keep it a secret. Now, on that side of things, if you're a conspiracy theorist, there's nothing I can say that's going to convince you that none of those parties had anything to do with this, but they have all come out and said, including Reddit and Paragon Chat and everybody else, saying, we didn't have anything to do with this. And Leandro himself has come out and said, none of these people had anything to do with this. Although I may have been associated with one or two of these people in these projects at various times, it was because of their projects, not because of this project that we were working on. So it does get very messy. Q, what really has people miffed is that not only did they have the source code and this thing is hiding, but they also had character data, which means, Jason, your City of Heroes character is sitting there ready to be is sitting there ready to be played, and you have just been denied the ability to play it, Jason. And Q, that's where a lot of people are jumping on, getting upset that, hey, we thought we were this whole community of refugees. Turns out, looks like there was a little bit of an elite group of that community, and then the rest of people. At least that's the impression some people in the City of Heroes community are taking, that they got asked out or never were able to get invited to this.
On your latter point, I mean, that's probably a correct way to think about it, I would think, is you weren't invited to be part of this thing. Granted, there was a really good reason for them not to literally invite the entire City of Heroes player base to be part of it. I mean, the more people you have involved, the more likely it is to be, found out about. So there's like that entire balance too. But yeah, obviously, some of these people, for whatever reason, weren't invited to be part of it. Maybe they were considered, maybe they weren't, but for some reason they weren't invited. So I can see being upset about that. As far as the character data and the personal data, that too is more of like, that's not something that they know in fact, right? At least that's the way I was reading it, because the guy in charge basically said, no, we don't have all that stuff because there would be no logical reason for us to have that stuff to run the game. Like,
well, that was in response to personal data of users.
Emails, credit card
Yeah,
info,
not
that's-
Jason's
Right.
characters, but Jason, his personal information. Although, again, conspiracy theorists, rightly or wrongly on that particular topic, are going to go, you lied about the existence of this whole project for 6 years. Do I really believe that you don't have my email and credit card address at this point? I don't know. I mean, there's a whole lot of... once you are caught lying or being slightly deceptive, then you lose credibility across the board. That's just the way trust is. And there's a lot of trust broken in this situation, Jason. But the flip side of that, Q, you just mentioned, is you can kind of see why, right? These were the people that also did Infinite Rasa, the private version of Tabula Rasa when it closed, and they got slapped with cease and desists real quickly on that one, and they were trying to avoid that same type of thing happening here, trying to avoid the whole NC Soft coming after them. Because their thing was that they did Infinite Rasa, like 4 years?
I don't think they
after
claim that they did Infinite Rasa. They just said that it existed and he knew about it. So I don't think he claims that he was people behind it.
When NCSoft closed, this was a part of the statement provided to Massively. So let me read it right, just in case I inferred something that wasn't there. I'll read it exactly as it appears here. You're right. Okay. It's a group of devoted players banded together to code a server for it. It was called Infinite Rasa. When things opened with a project website and a forum, architecture was being discussed publicly. There was a buggy server that allowed... Then it was hit by... Okay, so you're right. It's not the same exact people. My apologies there. It was just referencing the fact that this had happened and why they might be nervous about doing this with City of Heroes, even though it was all these years later, Jason.
Yeah. I mean, that's the one thing here. Like, I understand, like I said, being secretive about it because you're worried about cease and desist, whether that would just shut it down or whether it would hit you with any legal issues. Not to mention whatever legal issues, as mentioned, could really be handed down on the developer or whoever who actually provided them with the code. I would have kept it secret too. I mean, honestly, if I was working on that with that level of basically what's the word? Proprietary information, then I wouldn't want it getting out there either.
Yeah, I wouldn't want it getting out there either if I was doing this, Q, but I think just by all three of us have tried to hold a secret from somebody at some point in our entire lives, right? Let's not pretend that we haven't, whether it was good, bad, good intention, bad intention, a flat-out lie, whatever.
I'm sorry, but I'm very attracted to you.
Well, that's no secret. Anyway, we all know that once you get to, like, the threshold of 3 people that know the secret, it's not a secret anymore. And it is not going to be a secret for long. It is just a matter of time. Most people that have affairs at some point get caught because secrets just don't stay secrets. They might for a while, but they always end up coming out. This Q, there were thousands of players. This wasn't the 3 of us doing something, swearing not to tell because we like what we're doing and we don't want to get sued by NC Soft. This was thousands of people. You kind of lose, I think, the ability to credibly say that that was the sole reason you were keeping the secret was legal action, when there are thousands of people in on it, and you've kind of lost when your only repercussion if you break the NDA is getting bounced from the server, you really don't have any real repercussion for somebody. You had to know the secret was getting out.
Well, yeah, and obviously it was over time, but there's the whole thing of plausible deniability too, right? Like, it got out several times, but nobody believed it.
Or it was stripped from forums or Reddit,
So like, people are just like, oh yeah, right, that's what's going on. That's honestly how a lot of like, larger secrets are kept, is kind of with that you just kind of create this thing to make other people who feel like they're being reasonable or whatever have a reason to not believe the secret when it actually leaks out. So, I mean, basically you're gaslighting a whole bunch of people into not believing that something that's happening is happening. And in the case of a game, it makes logical sense, right? There's no way that this thing could possibly be happening and nobody would know about it, especially with there being thousands of people involved in it, right? Because they tell you that the easiest way for 3 people, if 3 people have a secret, how do you keep the secret? One person shoots the other 2.
Yeah.
So when it's like this, and but that's pretty much how secret keeping on the large scale works. Is you kind of let some of the stuff slip or whatever. You have everyone else convince people that they're wrong and it can't be a thing. And that's how you keep the secret. You keep the secret by not actually keeping it to a certain extent. And it worked for him for 6 years. It was just because it was, oh, well, this is happening without evidence. And now it's like, well, this is happening and here's the evidence kind of thing. And at that point, when you have the actual physical evidence, then the secret is totally blown up and, there it more or less goes. So.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that makes this one more complicated too, Jason, is kind of, not only the scrubbing of the mentions of it and things on Reddit, which, by the way, their response was, anytime you mention private server, that's likely to be scrubbed from most of these conversations. It wasn't this specific, Scores private server that was being scrubbed. It was the mention of private server. Nope, that's not a topic. Legal liabilities, get it out of here. But this also gets a little more complex, I think. And Elliot over at Massively OP did a whole article. Elliot, if you remember back in, this is kind of where Elliot got his start, actually, as far as, doing content for Massively, such as it was before it was Massively OP, was, City of Heroes content. And he kind of put this whole editorial together that I think summed up some things nicely, and whether you agree with his conclusion or not, that this is the death of the City of Heroes community. Not the game itself dying, because there was still a community after that, but this will fracture the shit out of that community, and it is gone. Because there is that element of there are other aspects here, Jason. There are all these spiritual successors and things that people were supporting and funding, and while this was actually just being played by people in the background, and that kind of does have a little bit of feeling about it. It creates hey, we're all the City of Heroes community. Oh, wait, no, there's an upper elite class and then the rest of us. I can't argue with them because I'm not ingrained in that community. I never played City of Heroes longer than like an hour or two. Superheroes just generally aren't my thing. It wasn't a slam against the game at all. The genre is just not one that I'm generally drawn to. But at the other end of this, I also go, this is a video game. So, like, I don't know, Jason. Reel me in here and give us a sense of somebody who played it, but also, realizes, hey, these things are just games, and you gave up on City of Heroes 6 years ago when it went down. What does this all mean to somebody like you, an average player, maybe not an actual hardcore devotee?
If you told me like a week ago that something like this would destroy the community or anything like that, I'd tell you, you're just making stuff up. You're hyperbolizing or whatever, or exaggerating, whatever. But man, seeing some of the stuff that's been going on with like, Pardini getting death threats, even
which that's absurd. That's absurd,
yeah.
No matter what we're talking about.
Bree talks about too, but like a couple days later, like yesterday, she had an additional like session on a Discord server to talk to him and other people, and she says, when I got there onto the Reddit server or onto the Discord server, I was being attacked and harassed. She was being harassed and attacked for just reporting on this stuff. That is just these people. And I did a little tweet storm about this. Probably the only time in my life I've ever said gamers grow the fuck up, basically. Because some people are just way too involved in this, way too entrenched in this, and I get being a little upset or being a little sad that maybe people were playing on this and I couldn't over the course of several years. Yeah, I can understand that, but taking it to that degree, taking it to the level of feeling betrayed and one of the threads on Reddit was, Leandro's holding your characters hostage or something like that. It's like, come on, it is a game. Get over it. Move on with your life. I don't know. Seek professional help, maybe.
Wow.
Maybe that's what you need to do, because some people are just taking it way too seriously.
No, you see, I can go with you on when you start passing out death threats over a video game. You're immediately in the wrong to me. I don't care what if you're DDoSing and all that type of stuff. You're immediately in the wrong. I don't care what game we're talking about or how big the betrayal was over a video game. When you reach that level, you're wrong. When you're throwing death threats at a journalist who's writing, when you're throwing death threats at a journalist, period. You're wrong. When you're throwing death threats at a journalist writing about a 6-year-old video game that died, 6 years ago, now you're just ridiculously wrong. I don't know if I can go as far as you, though, Jason, in saying that the feeling of being betrayed a little bit by a community that you felt was rather unified and looked out for each other, and we had all these spiritual successors that we were all rooting for and supporting in various ways, to find out there was a pretty large segment of that community hiding something like this to themselves. I could kind of understand feeling betrayed a little bit on that one. What about you, Q?
Yeah, I understand the whole, being upset because like I said, there is that kind of feeling of like, well, these people who were invited to the server, right? And that's the big difference there. It's not like they stumbled across it or whatever and came in. They were invited specifically to keep. And yeah, I understand the keeping the whole thing on the low down. If you have 1 million people in your game, there's no way it's going to be quiet. But to Jason's point, like, I don't care how betrayed you feel. Like, like I was I haven't watched it in a couple of years because I kind of fell off, but I was a really heavy Walking Dead fan. And what he was saying is about gamers grow up. No, everybody needs to grow the fuck up. Seriously, when they killed the little girl who was trying to be friends with the zombies or whatever, tried to kill Judith. They were sending this little girl, the actor who played the little girl, death threats, right? Like, they're sending death threats to a little girl because they felt betrayed by a little girl's character who was going to kill another little girl's character in a TV show. So everybody just needs to grow up and get the hell over everything, because this is some stupid shit to be sending people death threats and stuff over. It's just ridiculous. The
big question becomes, where do we go from here? Right? Are they going to open up the game? Are they going to shut it down entirely? Anticipating some type of action from NCSoft. All those types of things. And for right now, Jason, the plan is continue what we've been doing. They'll continue leaving it open. They'll continue it being an invite-only thing. The other part of the betrayal is that exact aspect of this, Jason, is that they've kind of been omitting certain things in communication on what they were doing. Like, this was a closed thing, we're working on it, and we're going to open it up as soon as it's ready, only to find out it's been ready and playable for years and people have been doing it. So, like, where does it go from here? Do you see NCSoft getting involved at some point? Do you see it opening up to the public? Do you see it shutting down? Like, what do you think happens? We know their plan is right now leaving it up, leaving it invite only, leaving an NDA in place, although I don't know if that really helps you anymore having that. But what actually do you think is going to happen?
Well, they do intend to release the source code. That is something that he said.
At some point.
After he can get it set up so that he can remove all references to the person who actually provided with them in the first place. Yeah. For NCSoft's standpoint, I can't believe they don't get involved in this. As he mentioned, with the whole Infinite Rasa thing, they went after that on a game that was 4 years old, and that wasn't really all that popular. It didn't have that huge of a demand to begin with. So something like this, especially since they've actually, because one of the reasons you protect your copyright even after you've stopped, producing the product is in case you want to use it again or use some aspects of it again down the road. And NCSoft actually did that. They put Statesman in Master X Master. So who knows what other plans, granted, probably not a full City of Heroes 2 or anything really of a huge revival or anything like that. But they might still have plans to do something or other with the City of Heroes IP and with its properties and with its characters. So it's hard to imagine they wouldn't take some sort of action against him. And maybe that would even require him to reveal his source, which would be really bad probably for that guy, because then we're talking, theft of IP and probably some actual jail time possibly for that sort of thing.
Yeah, and again, we're talking about a private server with the source code, not emulation. which is an entirely different subject. And we also don't know where these servers are run, right? Are they in a country that NCSoft can get a hold of, have some legal repercussions against? Are they being run somewhere where they're, NCSoft can fume and bluster all they want, Q, but they can't really do anything about? And according, on this topic, massively, again, put up a poll on what people think should be done from this point going forward. Q, I'm going to read you the choices here as soon as I find it. Where is it? Here it is. I'm going to read you the choices, and you tell me what you think is winning. And I'm not going to read them all because there's some that are just silly. Just let everyone in. It's time. Release the code, as they say. Let someone else have a crack at it. Just host in a country where NCSoft can't touch it like other emulators do. Switch efforts to SEGS, which is now operating out in the open. There's switch efforts to Paragon Chat, switch to Spirit. I mean, there's a couple that are, the 2% of the vote or less. Go back into hiding and continue gradual invites, which is what they're going to do for the time being, pending a release of the code. Or just no opinion at this point. What do you think, City of Heroes fans, being most of the people that probably voted here, what do you think they're clamoring for?
I mean, I would think that they'd want to get into it as quickly as possible. So I would think for, just open it up to everyone. But considering how hurt a lot of them obviously feel about it, I don't know necessarily that that's what they'd want to go for. But I would think under normal circumstances, open it up to everyone would be the answer. With
862 votes being 23% of the voting population, just let everyone in has 23%. Jason, did you peek?
I did not, although when it first came up, I looked at it, but I didn't look at it afterwards. And he makes a good point, like considering Leandro Pardini does, considering the abuse and issues that have been, coming out just on social media and whatever. Actually, letting it up to everybody would like quadruple or quintuple that. It would be all over the server. Yeah, probably ruin it for anyone there. So I
think a lot of people would be out to hurt the server at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So I can see that I can understand his decision to leave it as a private sort of thing for now.
So Q's guess is currently in second at 23%.
Sorry. I thought you were saying that 23%. That was the first one.
Nope, that's second. The first place goes to 41%, a little over 1,500 votes on release the code, let someone else have a crack at it. And I think that's not only indicative of, hey, we want the code, but I think you've fractured the trust so badly that they would rather anybody have it but Leandro at this point. So I don't know. We'll obviously keep following this one. Please stop emailing me. I have not ever had access to this.
Neither have I.
Yeah.
Really? You're getting emails about that?
I am getting emails about it. I have not ever had access to it. I didn't even know it existed. Not being a huge City of Heroes player myself personally, I would never have gone to look for this or known who to contact to see if it existed. And in my professional capacity at MMO Bomb, I have never been invited to these things. I do not know who to direct you to get access. Do either of you? Can we just put that out there now? I'm assuming neither of you do. Jason, you're not part of the COH Elite, are you, Jason?
Oh, yeah, totally. I've been playing my character for years. No, I never knew anything about this.
Please don't email me about this anymore. I am done with those emails. All right, moving on. This didn't take long, and we're going to, pat ourselves on the back a little bit because we got one prediction right. Q, you're in on this too. However, I mean, when we make 700 of them and we get one right, this is the only one we're going to bring up. We won't bring up the other 699 until it's time to review them at the end of the year, and we all laugh at each other. And I don't think this one
says as if anybody else does the predictions thing or start every year.
Oh, blah blah blah.
I'm the one who puts my neck out.
You don't put, but you also ask ahead of time like what we think, and if something's way out of line.
Well, no, he specifically asks you. Nobody really asks what I think, which is totally fine.
I ask what you think, but it's usually not about video games.
That is true.
I'm like, hey, this is going on in the world today. What do you think about this?
Yeah, like deep philosophical
Yeah, it was like,
conversations.
well, this happened in Europe. It couldn't have less of an impact. But Q and I are like, well, what if? Well, what if? Well, what if? Anyway, so Gamigo took over Tryon World. Well, bought the assets of Tryon Worlds, and that was back in October. And we went on the line and started giving our predictions for each game: Rift, Arcade, Trove, Defiance, the whole 9 yards. And we kind of pointed out at the time that Atlas Reactor, although part of the purchase, was not listed in the press release. So where did that leave that? And that gave us the inclination that we probably weren't going to see Atlas Reactor for very long. In that show, I asked that week, late October last year, I asked all three of us to answer for each game whether we thought it would be around in 6 months and if it would be around in a year. And every Tryon Worlds game lasted the 6-month mark. One, we were kind of dubious on if it would make the 12-month mark, that being Defiance, with the exception of one game that none of us saw lasting greater than 6 months. In 10 days, it will be 6 months from that podcast. Atlas Reactor has been, while it will still be running at that time, it is shutting down, Jason.
Yep. So I'm going to count that as a win for all of us.
I agree.
Because we at least
That's a
predicted that it
W.
would go. Yep. Yeah. June 28th is the date that it will go offline, and at least they gave the real reason for it. It just didn't make enough money. It wasn't they didn't find the fun or whatever.
We just couldn't make this fun,
Yeah.
which is our jobs, but we couldn't do it.
Well, technically, making money is also kind of their job. So let's face it, these guys failed.
A little bit.
But yeah, the Gamigo said an announcement yesterday that it would not be going on, even though their producer, Merv Lee Quiet, the guy I've talked to several times, he had a lot of complimentary things to say about it. Said it broke the mold of samey games, but never quite grew big enough to fund its continued development. In other words, didn't make enough money to keep going. So there you go.
So they shut off purchases as of yesterday, the 17th, so you can no longer buy anything in the game. There is nothing in here about any refunds, and I'm kind of okay with that because they pushed the shutdown so far out. I mean, that's like 3 months away, or 2 months away now. Although I would kind of be miffed if I bought something recently. Like, usually we see, like, the last 60 days type refunds given. Even if it's just we're going to refund it into whatever Gamigo's currency is. We see PWE do that all the time. Yeah, we're going to give you some ARC coins, and you go do that. But they do have a gift for you if you logged in anytime at least once, between January 1st of last year, 2018, to the 4/16, so 2 days ago. So there's a free gift waiting for you. More information was sent to your email. Troy, I know, is going to miss this one. Troy Blackburn, big fan of Atlas Reactor. But Q, I don't think the rest of the world, and even Troy, is surprised by this.
No, I mean, it was always kind of, like Tryon's one of their more low-key things that they were doing. And it was also something that they were doing after they started struggling. So it's kind of not a surprise it never really got off the ground with them. And it doesn't surprise me that Gamigo looked at it and was just like, this just really isn't worth us putting effort into when we have this other stuff. It's not like it was ever one of the big properties to try and save.
Well, to be fair, they didn't do themselves any favors. I mean, they kind of shot themselves in the foot right off the bat, where this is going to be free to play. Then before it comes out, they said, oh, wait, no, we're going to make it buy to play. Then they converted to a free to play model that nobody could understand why the hell they were doing it that way. Then they converted to a more traditional free to play model, which is what they should have launched with at the beginning. I mean, they didn't do themselves any favors with this one, but sad to see it go. We hope everybody on the team is allocated. There was no word about that, Jason. I didn't see anything from the statements that the team's going to be reassigned to Rift or other Gamigo properties, or if they were going to be let go or put on other projects. So our hope is that they were moved to other internal projects, not a layoff situation.
I'm not sure they'll find a place for the 3 people who are still working on it.
Oh, that's
Ow.
unfair. That's unfair.
Yeah, that's like back in the day when they said that there was only so many people working at the CCP office in Atlanta. They sent Gary a picture of everybody gathered in the parking lot going, "Oh, really?"
Right. All right, so before we slide over to the weekly bombs, we've got one more story that could turn into a bigger story. But in the unlikely event that that actually happens, I do think this could feed into some bigger stories in the future. So we're going to talk about loot boxes for a minute here in the United States, where we haven't had a lot to talk about besides the FCC being asked to investigate. Or FTC, sorry. Is it FTC, wasn't it? Federal Trade Commission.
Yeah.
Communications Commission doesn't make sense for this one. So yeah, besides that, we really haven't heard much besides a few lawmakers being upset and wanting these things looked into. But now we actually have something potentially reaching the American court system, Jason. What is going on?
So Valve is being sued by a Native American tribe in Washington. The Quinault Nation, which operates a casino and resort and everything in that area.
And they're licensed to do so through the state. They had to do all the casino-y stuff to be able to do that.
And they are suing Valve basically for competing with them in terms of gambling based on what they do with Counter-Strike and to some extent Dota 2. Saying that Valve, quote, does not have a license to operate, facilitate, or otherwise engage in any form of gambling whatsoever, and that the loot boxes infringe upon the nation's rights as granted by the Washington Gaming Commission. It says Valve is engaging in unfair competition with the legally licensed regulated gambling operation owned and managed by the nation, that its actions violate Washington law and harm the nation.
Sidebar, Valve is located, they're headquartered in Washington, so makes sense for the suit to be happening from a Washington entity accusing a Washington entity of competing in this way.
So yeah, basically they're saying they are I mean quite blatantly and quite simply saying this loot boxes are gambling. That is the essence of their argument. That is 100% what they have to say that it's being done illegally in the state of Washington.
Yeah, that it's in quote illegal scheme designed to bypass state by state gambling laws. They're not being coy about this at all. They're saying this is gambling. Valve knows it's gambling. Valve intentionally built it so that it was like gambling, but built it in a way to bypass laws, and we're, being forced to compete against an unlicensed entity. Q, before we get Jason's opinion, which I already know because he wrote the article, does this case stand a chance? This particular case, does this stand any chance? Does this hit a court? Does this see its day in front of a judge? Does this get settled out? Does this disappear? Where does this one go?
I was thinking about that, and most of the stuff, or a lot of the stuff involving loot boxes, has kind of just, been swept under the rug for a lot of, as like our political stuff goes. Yes, there's the politicians that are really like out there trying to push it as a thing, but for the most part, it falls under this. Well, they say it's gambling, they say it's not, let's just ignore it and, it'll shake itself out or whatever kind of thing. It is, when he first said casino, I honestly wasn't thinking like a Native American casino. I was thinking like the Flamingo or Circus or any
super deep pockets Las Vegas casino.
Right, the people with actual money that tend to matter to the government a little bit more than, say, and unfortunately the Native American tribes tend to matter to, and I'm saying to the government.
Yeah, okay. I was just saying, to clarify, you're saying in the eyes of the government, they don't have the sway that they should, not that they, quote, don't matter.
Right, that matter to the government, because again, it's the money thing, right? With our government, it is always the money thing. Now, if Circus or any of the Las Vegas, Laughlin, Nevada casinos rolled out and were like, oh, this is a problem, you'd probably see somewhat swifter action. But with Native American casinos, which honestly only get any kind of notice from people who don't visit them on, sitcoms and stuff where people go to Native American casinos for whatever. They're not even usually that much in the public eye. They don't have as much money as these larger groups do. So therefore their complaint may not have as much of an impact just because they don't have the money behind them to make that complaint. Granted, they have way more money than any of us do,
right?
obviously, but they don't have that level of, we have casinos. It's 7 different states or however many it is now that technically allow gambling.
So do you see this one getting settled out? That's the thing. Like, does Valve settle this out just to, shut up somebody and not have to see a day in court? Or does Valve say, stick to the guns like EA is, right? In Belgium, stick to their guns to the point on, we believe this isn't gambling enough that we'll take our chance in court. I feel like if you buy this one out and settle, it's almost admitting we think our product is maybe gambling on a legal perspective too, even though that hasn't been adjudicated anywhere.
Yeah, I can't see them just being like, oh, yeah, well, all right, we'll just go ahead and pay it off because this is gambling. Because, it's such a weird thing when people think of gambling, like the stuff that's happening. Like, yeah, there's the random chance, you're paying money for it, blah, 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 but it's not going to a casino and sitting in a casino and them giving you free drinks for playing and copying your hotel room and doing all the things the casinos do to make you sit there and gamble, 18 hours a day. Or whatever it is. Like in those respects, it just doesn't feel like, it doesn't have that feel of, oh, this is gambling. And I think, and like, you don't have to do it to play your game, right? Like, or whatever it is that you're doing. So their argument, I think they would feel like their argument still stands, and it's a huge moneymaker for them. Like, are they really just going to give it up by accidentally admitting that they really are gambling?
Yeah, Jason, I feel like Valve's actually you may think the entity that's suing them is small in comparison to Valve, right? And you'd be right that it's small in respect to, or in comparison to other casinos, as Q pointed out, that could potentially wage the suit. That's all 100% valid. But I still think Valve's in a little bit of a sticky situation here. Mm-hmm. This is a little sticky wicket, as they say. Because there is no real good... Because, fine, we see lawsuits all the time settle out of court, and most cases, the answer is, I don't know if they're guilty or not. I have no idea. I know they settled out of court because it's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper and they didn't want to pay their lawyers. I don't think you can look at this, if it was settled out of court that way, as the same. I feel like, if the company thought it wasn't gambling, then there is no reason not to take this to court, because settling gives the idea that maybe you think it's gambling, but even if that's not the case, it opens you up to potentially a lot more lawsuits that you're going to have to settle because you settled this one. Like, I almost think this is bad for Valve, and they haven't helped themselves comment-wise either on the whole topic of loot boxes and things like that. It's not gambling, and this is not an accident. This is by design. They haven't really helped themselves. I don't know if this one sees a courtroom or not, and if it does, I don't know what happens from there, but I could certainly see whatever happens here being referenced in some bigger suits that I think are inevitable at this point from other entities or other legislative bodies. This would be the first time in the United States, Jason, that a court would actually, if it saw a judge, would actually have to decide, is a loot box gambling or not, because that's what this case hinges on. If it's not, you lose. If we deem it gambling and they don't have a license to do that, you win. I mean, it's as simple as that.
And gaming has changed. Online video games are changed.
Go ahead, Jason.
I don't know what the legal precedent is for a settlement. Like, you'll often see, some judgment coming down saying, and we said that because of the court of, this versus that, or because of the case of this versus that, we believe this is like this. Because that previous case actually came to a verdict of some degree. I don't know if a settlement works that same way. If they could later say, well, in this case, Valve settled with the nation and so forth. But in the public eye, it's going to be just like what you said. Like, enough gamers already feel like it's gambling.
No,
and enough,
hold on. Let me clarify. That is not what I was implying by saying, if they settled, this could. My point was just if they settled, that would be a flag to me
Sure.
running some type of gambling establishment that I'm licensed that, hey, there is no reason I shouldn't sue them because apparently they're going to settle rather than take it to court. That was where I was kind of coming from with that angle of settlement, opening you up to potential lawsuits. Not the precedent being set by the settlement, but more, well, I got nothing to lose. They're probably going to settle. So let's go see if I can get some money out of Valve.
And there are a lot of other Native American casinos all throughout the country, and you would think that not just being in Washington would be the point, because of course they do internet business. Valve does business all over the country with their internet and so forth. But yeah, I mean, I agree. They're kind of in a, unless it just gets thrown out completely. I don't know what the burden is for that to happen. If that's the case, that might be their only chance, and maybe that's what they can argue for. Like, it's just not gambling. They can't accuse us of something we're not doing. That might be the defense. Maybe you find a way to get that completely tossed out. That would be probably their only recourse at this point, and except of course going to trial and hopefully finding that verdict in their favor. But that carries with it quite a lot of risk. So
yes, it does.
Again, you'd have to and their thought might be in that case, we're just going to lawyer up and money up and just hopefully be able to do more than these guys can handle.
And that's what EA's done, right? In Belgium, they've said, you know what, we don't think it's gambling, and yeah, they do. I don't believe for a minute that they think it's not.
But Belgium has more resources than the Quinault Nation.
Right. And so we're gonna take our day in court here. I don't know where this particular one goes, but we will definitely be keeping an eye on this one as it unfolds, because I think it could potentially open up some new avenues of exploration on this topic throughout the next year or two. Let's slide over to the weekly bombs. Q, you're up.
Well, I was going to do what was your bomb, but
the benefit of being the one that types the show notes.
Right. So instead, I'm actually going to give a bomb to Albion for actually realizing that their new influx of players would need somewhere to settle and everything, and getting right on that. So, and rolling stuff out for them instead of just waiting till whenever they got around to it.
Yeah, Zach Sharp's very happy with that. He tweeted how big the world was getting. All right, so I'll go next since Q referenced mine. That Q and I would like to give a bomb to being able to get a free copy of Assassin's Creed Unity. So Ubisoft is giving them away. You can find details on our site and on Ubisoft's site. Because the game contains the Notre Dame Cathedral in France, which, as you probably know, had a series of unfortunate events leading to a fire that's still being investigated, that did quite a bit of damage, and Ubisoft is also donating a little over $500,000 to the restoration causes there too. So very cool. If you wanted to play Assassin's Creed Unity, or you've never been to the cathedral and you'd like to have a pretty accurate representation in game of what it looked like, you can have a free copy of that game. Follow the details on our site. Jason, go ahead.
I'm going to give a bomb to ArenaNet for an interview they did this week with Eurogamer. The first real studio interview about what's going on there following the layoffs that happened about a month ago. They got in some pretty good details about how morale is going and how they've been able to adapt to the different things that are going on there. And particularly, they talked about how they're going to maybe reassess this gives them the chance to reassess how they produce updates for the game, saying they want to make them a little less formulaic going forward, which has been kind of the thing for me over the past couple of years, in that they've just been, there's been nothing about the updates that have been bad, but nothing about them that's been particularly good either. Maybe you go, wow, I need to log in and try that out. So I really hope they do get into at least occasionally doing something a little more exciting and groundbreaking, kind of like what got people into the game in the first place.
Alrighty. From the viewers, we've got Elusive X Treasure saying, I know I already had my say about Rift's Battle Pass, but I feel the need to elaborate. My complaint was not about paying for content, as there is no content here. It was just dailies. My issue is this. Generally with shinies, you either pay for it or you grind for it. With the Battle Pass, you're essentially paying to grind for it. Beyond that, with a typical Rift event, there are dailies, weeklies, themed instant adventures, and zone events to grind for currency to get said shinies. The Battle Pass offers only dailies and weeklies, narrowing the path to obtaining such things, and effectively time-gating them. I don't know about anyone else, but I don't honestly believe people enjoy dailies and weeklies. Sure, we do them to get the reward, but that's not the same as enjoying them. Furthermore, you have to progress through levels to get the reward you seek. They're basically selling you a carrot on a stick, and that's not even mentioning all the bugs, the fact that it might force PvP dailies, or the fact that some of the items aren't even account bound. If anyone is actually satisfied with this, I can't imagine why. Thank you for the follow-up, Elusive X Treasure. Knowing you and how much you love Rift, we certainly value your opinion on that. Go ahead, Jason.
Slayer Master PWI. Excuse me. You guys should have heard me before the cast. It says, A-bomb to Mother Nature. We had a huge blizzard roll through South Dakota, and where I'm at, we ended up with 20 inches of snow from Wednesday through Friday morning. That's all, just 20 inches? What are you complaining about? Jeez. On the plus side, South Dakota made national news.
Yeah, that was weird. I have a friend not quite as far south as you there, Slayer Master, but they went from like 60, 70-degree weather to a week later, 20 inches of snow. Ridiculous. Go ahead, Q.
Oh, you had to give me the grumpy one. Command and Conquer. I remember when free-to-play was getting big and MMO Bomb was good. Now free-to-play is dead, and so is MMO Bomb. Nice to see Magic Man still going on life support. LOL. Grumpy ones. Yeah.
Free-to-play getting big and MMO Bomb was good. Now free-to-play is dead. Free-to-play is always dead. I've heard that for 7 years
since
now.
It came out.
Yeah, free-to-play is dead.
Along with World of Warcraft.
Oh, we're dead too, and I'm on life support. So the site is dead, but I'm on life support. I have a feeling that if I were on life support and or the site were dead, we wouldn't do this show every week. There's clearly something going on there, but hey, thanks for the click. I don't know.
It's also funny that a guy named Command and Conquer saying this. Hey, you tried that you'll have cell phones, right?
Victor Alkaiser says, after typing this, I think this constitutes an A-bomb to anyone defending paid battle passes and a dub-bomb to Warframe. And yes, this is a counter to the guy on last week's show. So apparently I am now facilitating viewer arguments.
Excellent.
Warframe recently debuted... Whoops, I scrolled down a little too far. Debuted an evolving battle pass-like system that mixes both cosmetics and highly sought-after upgrade items. This pass, just as what Chaosbringer stated, also helped repopulate the game's star chart by having people do a lot of different activities within it. You're even given currency with this battle pass to spend in a store that also gives cosmetics, weapons, rare materials, and upgrade items. Not just any upgrade items, but stuff you normally could only get from the cash shop or very rare invasion missions and developer livestream alerts for those in the know, Orokin catalysts, and reactors. There is also a random chance for a mini-boss enemy to spawn in almost any mission, and if you defeat him, there's a, albeit small, chance he'll drop parts of to craft a new weapon out of. And as icing on the cake, the Battle Pass has its own lore surrounding it. It wasn't shoehorned in. A lovely radio DJ is basically the host for it, and it talks to you while completing your missions for her. Every week, more lore surrounding her and the mini-boss is explained as if unraveling a mystery. Know what the true kicker here is? It's all free. All of it. You don't have to pay a single cent. It's just right there for all to enjoy, new players and old, for free. So whenever I hear someone defend any of these battle passes that force you to pay for the privilege of getting rewards for just playing the game, I take a moment to pity them before hopping into Warframe to run a few missions for my newest favorite DJ, Ta-ta, lovelies. Thank you so much, Victor. That was tremendous feedback on the whole topic of battle passes. Yeah, I mean, that's really hard to argue with the way Warframe does things across the board. You may or may not like the game, and we can have that argument all day, but as far as being a free-to-play model, for as many years as it's been out, it is still one of, if not the best examples of how to do it, Jason.
You know, that is sort of the paradox of battle passes. Like back in the day, it was like, hey, pay $15, you get this cool outfit. Now it's pay $15, and then you can work to get this cool outfit.
Right.
It's like, what? Huh?
True.
How's that a good idea?
Take the next one, Jason.
Alcyon Game Crazy says, Blade and Soul is complete frame lag fest for me. I could be playing other games with better visuals that would run with like 60 frames per second, while Blade and Soul with nearly everything down and low on graphics, a mere 20 or 30 FPS. You could say I need a stronger PC or laptop, but do I? Considering I play games that run so well, it's almost as if Blade and Soul had issues to begin with, which was never fixed or just been given a band-aid that is wearing off. It's action combat with exclamation point. It needs high performance, else it won't be so fun if it's just a game being complete doo-doo and not for your lack of skill. 11 different MMORPGs out of many more I had played run very well, while Blade and Soul just couldn't.
Continuing on the Blade and Soul train, Q, finish up the viewer bombs.
Daniel Oppenlander, people will... Sorry.
What is wrong with you two?
People will be back for Blade and Soul when Unreal Engine 4 is out. Many left as its fan of shit in large-scale combat.
We shall see. Question of the week last week, where do you see Daybreak and its titles 6 months from now, a year from now? Kind of the same thing we did for Tryon. Elusive X Treasure says, for the question of the week, I think we're going to see more downsizing at Daybreak. I also believe Planetside Arena won't see the light of day. I think H1Z1 is on borrowed time with a maximum life of 1 year. As for the rest of the games, I don't believe they're in any immediate danger. Yeah, that's a good thing. Do you think Planetside Arena sees the light of day? Because I think it does, but not the way they're trying to do it right now. I think we see it hit the light of day as free-to-play.
I could see free-to-play within 6 months after launch. I think they're going
to try to go through?
They want the money early.
I mean, they refunded it, remember?
Well, but they want more money now. I mean, they want the actual money when it comes out.
I don't know. Let me take a peek.
Well, I'm sure I'm just saying when it actually comes out, they refunded it because people didn't want to wait for another 5 months or whatever. But when it actually comes out,
yeah, I wouldn't be
money.
surprised if they ditched that whole thing, and when it comes out, it's just going to be free to play. We'll see.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jason.
Nintendo says, question of the week. Honestly, I couldn't care less if Daybreak closes their doors entirely. The only thing that'll make me care a little is if they refund the money they owe me for the broken promises and false advertising of the landmark Trailblazer pack.
You and me both.
Until then, my answer to anybody asking me if I would play any games that bear the name Daybreak or are associated with Daybreak will forever be none until I get my $100 back. It could be the best game ever made. I hope they go down in the most spectacular way possible. As a German, we are the only ones to actually have a word that describes feeling of taking pleasure in other people's misery, Schadenfreude. I know not everyone working at Daybreak is at fault, but majorly the management at Daybreak, all the CEOs and whatnot, hopefully never get a job in the industry. And I hope those people are declined everywhere with the words, you aren't fun.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah.
Finish it up, Q.
Aphex on. Daybreak 6 months from now is pretty much dead.
Doesn't look like a positive viewpoint out there. So our question of the week this week, because I want to know, not being huge into City of Heroes, how do you feel about the City of Heroes private server having been running for years without you knowing about it? And if you haven't played City of Heroes, how would you feel if this happened to your game of choice after it went offline? Let us know in the comments below. While you're there, don't forget to give us your weekly bombs. Dub bomb for something good, A bomb for something bad, or any comments or questions, or just whatever the hell you want to talk about in the comments below. Until next week, Q, where can everybody find you? Looks like you're like sinking now. Your lower third is like...
This chair actually does sing.
Oh, okay.
Like it just... Anyway, you can find me on Twitter at Quitland. Like, where's the camera? Over there. I'm sunk below the camera.
Jason.
Find me on Twitter at Winter4, while streaming at twitch.tv/JasonWinter.
I'm Mike Byrne. You can follow me personally right there at magicman1 on Twitter. But more importantly, while you're there, follow at MMOBomb so you get tweets for all the latest articles, interviews, free-to-play cast, free-to-play weekly, giveaways, and so much more. Make sure you put your answers and bombs in the comments. And until next week, gang, stay safe. We'll see you on the servers.